The news of humanity's return spread across the galaxy like wildfire through dry grass. Within days of the hegemony's humiliating defeat, every major power in known space was mobilizing their fleets. The discovery of a technologically superior species had shattered the established order that had existed for millions of years. High Marshal Vorthak, Supreme Commander of the hegemony's war machine, stood before a holographic display showing the positions of 12 different battle fleets converging on the Sol system. Each fleet represented a different galactic power, and each had come with the same goal: to either control or destroy the human threat before it could spread. "They cannot be allowed to exist," Vorthak declared to the assembled commanders. "A species with their technological capabilities will upset the balance of power across the entire galaxy. We must act now, before they can establish themselves as a major force." The assembled fleet was the largest military force ever gathered in galactic history. Over 3,000 warships representing the combined might of the hegemony, the Cardorian Empire, the Synthoid Collective, and a dozen smaller powers. Enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems and reduce planets to molten slag. But unknown to the approaching Armada, every ship had been tracked since the moment it entered human sensor range, a sphere extending far beyond the boundaries of the solar system. Humanity's detection networks, built using quantum entanglement principles, could monitor events across hundreds of light-years instantaneously. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the Central Command Center of Luna Station, Earth's moon having long ago been converted into a massive military installation. Around her, thousands of enhanced humans coordinated defensive operations with an efficiency that would have been impossible for baseline organic minds. "Full galactic response confirmed," reported Captain Williams, his consciousness linked directly to the strategic network. 12 major fleet groups, total vessel count 3,147. They're maintaining formation approximately 1 light-year from our outer perimeter. Sarah nodded calmly, her enhanced mind processing tactical data from across the solar system. 500,000 years of preparation had led to this moment. The galaxy's powers had finally united against a common threat, and they had no idea what they were facing. "Begin Operation Lighthouse," she commanded. Throughout the Sol system, installations that had remained hidden even after Earth's initial revelation began coming online. The asteroid belt, which appeared from the outside to be a natural formation of space rocks, revealed itself to be the largest shipyard complex ever constructed. Millions of asteroids were actually camouflaged factories, weapons platforms, and vessel construction bays that had been operating continuously for millennia. The space between Mars and Jupiter suddenly filled with ships, not thousands like the approaching galactic fleet, but millions. Vessels of every conceivable design, from sleek interceptors no larger than shuttlecraft to massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. And at the center of it all, structures so vast they defied comprehension, ring worlds, sphere habitats, and megastructures that harvested energy directly from the sun itself. Admiral Vextar, whose Zelkari fleet had been invited to observe from a safe distance, stared at the displays in absolute shock. "How many ships are we looking at?" "Computer estimates put the number at approximately 12 million active vessels," his sensor officer replied in a trembling voice. "But, sir, that's not the most disturbing part." "What could be more disturbing than 12 million warships? They're all powered by technologies we can't even identify. Energy readings are off our scales. Some of those vessels appear to be drawing power directly from dimensional interfaces. They're tapping into forces that exist outside our reality." The truth was even more staggering than the Zelkari realized. Humanity had not simply built a large fleet. They had revolutionized the entire concept of space warfare. Their vessels didn't rely on conventional propulsion or weapons. Instead, they manipulated fundamental forces like gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong nuclear force itself. But the real revelation came when the defensive fleet began moving. The human vessels didn't accelerate in the traditional sense. They simply appeared where they needed to be, translating through higher dimensions to bypass the limitations of normal space-time. In seconds, the entire galactic armada found itself surrounded by human forces that had materialized from nowhere. High Marshal Vorthak stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. One moment, his fleet had been approaching an apparently empty region of space. The next, they were completely encircled by enemy vessels that shouldn't have been able to exist. "All ships, battle stations," he commanded. "Prepare to engage." But before a single weapon could be fired, every ship in the Galactic Armada found itself experiencing the same phenomenon that had befallen the earlier hegemony fleet. Their weapon systems simply stopped functioning. Not damaged, not destroyed, just switched off as if someone had removed a critical component from reality itself. Sarah Chen's voice reached every ship in the fleet simultaneously, transmitted through quantum channels that bypassed all known communication protocols. "Leaders of the galactic powers, you have come here with intent to destroy or conquer Earth. This action demonstrates the fundamental problem with your current civilization." As she spoke, holographic displays appeared on every bridge, showing images of human achievements over the past 500,000 years. Cities that existed in folded space-time, allowing millions of people to live in areas no larger than a city block. Farms that grew food using controlled fusion reactions, producing nutritionally perfect crops without soil, water, or sunlight. Medical technologies that could resurrect the dead, extend lifespans indefinitely, and enhance biological capabilities beyond anything the galaxy had imagined. "You fight over resources that we have learned to create from nothing," Sarah continued. "You wage wars for territory when we have learned to expand space itself. You seek to dominate other species when we have learned to transcend the limitations of any single form of existence." The assembled fleet commanders watched in stunned silence as the holographic displays showed them a civilization that had solved every problem that plagued galactic society. Scarcity, conflict, disease, death, all rendered obsolete by technologies that seemed to border on magic. "For 500,000 years, we have watched your civilizations rise and fall, repeating the same cycles of expansion, conquest, and collapse. We withdrew from galactic society not because we were weak, but because we saw no benefit in participating in your primitive conflicts." Admiral Korthak of the Hegemony found his voice first. "If you possess such technologies, why didn't you share them? Think of the suffering you could have prevented." Sarah's response came with a gentle sadness that somehow made it more terrifying than any threat. "We tried. In the early days of our isolation, we attempted to make contact with developing species, to share our knowledge and help them avoid the mistakes we had made. Do you know what happened?" New images appeared on the displays, historical records of humanity's early attempts to guide younger civilizations. Every attempt had ended in disaster. Species that received advanced technology too quickly either destroyed themselves with it or became dependent to the point where they stopped developing on their own. "We learned that wisdom cannot be given," Sarah explained. "It must be earned through experience, trial, and growth. Any species that receives power beyond their understanding will inevitably use that power to destroy themselves or others." High Marshal Vorthak, desperate to maintain some semblance of authority, made one last attempt at intimidation. "Your words are pretty, but you are still outnumbered. 3,000 ships represent the combined might of the galaxy. You cannot hope to stand against us all." Sarah's response was to demonstrate just how thoroughly the galactic powers had misunderstood their situation. Around the alien fleet, space itself began to change. Stars that had been light years away suddenly appeared close enough to touch. Planets materialized in empty space, complete with atmospheres and biospheres. The human fleet revealed that they weren't just ships. They were mobile reality generators, capable of reshaping the fundamental structure of space-time itself. "You speak of 3,000 ships," Sarah said calmly, "as if that number has meaning to us. We stopped counting our vessels when we reached the billions, but more importantly, you assume that we would need to fight you at all." What happened next would reshape every species' understanding of what was possible. The galactic fleet didn't find itself under attack. Instead, they found themselves being gently but irresistibly moved. Not their ships, but the space containing their ships. The human vessels were manipulating the dimensional substrate of reality itself, creating currents in space-time that carried the alien fleets wherever humanity wanted them to go. Within minutes, every ship in the galactic Armada had been transported to a specially prepared system at the edge of human space. Here, vast amphitheater structures had been constructed. Artificial worlds designed to accommodate representatives of every known species in the galaxy. "Welcome to Convergence Station," Sarah announced, as the alien crews found themselves able to leave their ships and explore the massive facilities that had been prepared for them. "You came here to fight a war. Instead, we invite you to witness the end of one era and the beginning of another." The station was a marvel beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Entire continents had been designed to accommodate different atmospheric requirements, gravity levels, and environmental needs. Every species could exist here comfortably and, more importantly, safely. The humans had created a meeting place where traditional enemies could gather without fear of treachery or violence. Over the following weeks, something unprecedented happened in galactic history. Instead of warfare, there was dialogue. The human representatives, beings who had lived for centuries and accumulated wisdom beyond anything the galaxy had known, began sharing not their technologies, but their philosophy and understanding. They demonstrated that scarcity was an illusion created by limited thinking. They showed how conflicts arose from misunderstanding rather than genuine incompatibility. They revealed that the galaxy's greatest problems could be solved not through conquest or domination, but through cooperation and mutual understanding. Some species resisted these ideas, clinging to their traditional ways of thinking. But others began to see the possibilities that humanity offered. The Zelkari were among the first to embrace the new paradigm, their natural curiosity making them ideal partners for the next phase of galactic evolution. Dr. Kelana, now serving as a liaison between her people and humanity, stood beside Sarah Chen on an observation deck overlooking Convergence Station's central plaza. Below them, representatives of dozens of species mingled freely, sharing knowledge and experiences that would have been impossible under the old galactic order. "How long did you plan for this moment?" Kelana asked. Sarah smiled, her ancient eyes reflecting the lights of a dozen different suns. "From the day we decided to withdraw from galactic society, we knew that eventually we would need to return. But we also knew that when we did, it had to be as teachers rather than conquerors. And the species that refuse to change, the ones that insist on maintaining the old ways, they will be allowed to continue as they choose," Sarah replied. "But they will no longer be able to threaten others. We have established barriers around aggressive civilizations, not prisons, but boundaries that prevent them from spreading their conflicts beyond their own territories." The transformation of galactic civilization didn't happen overnight. It took decades for the new paradigms to spread and centuries for the full implications to be realized. But for the first time in galactic history, technological advancement was guided by wisdom rather than driven by fear or greed. Humanity had returned to the galaxy not as conquerors, but as gardeners, carefully nurturing the growth of other species while protecting them from the destructive impulses that had nearly destroyed the human race 500,000 years earlier. And in the depths of space, new wonders began to appear. Cities that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Worlds where different species could coexist in perfect harmony. Technologies that enhanced life rather than threatening it. The galaxy was finally beginning to realize its true potential, guided by a species that had learned the hardest lesson of all, that true strength comes not from the power to destroy, but from the wisdom to create and protect. The age of endless warfare was ending. The age of galactic civilization was about to begin.